Well, good afternoon. Trucker Todd here, and time for Tuesday Trucker Talk. I'm not sure if this video is playing yet or not. Hopefully, everybody can see me. Looks like it's working now. We've been having all kinds of technical difficulties like we do every Tuesday. I'll start calling this show Technical Tuesday if it doesn't get, if we don't get it under control pretty soon. But I'm really excited about today's show. We've only got a little bit of time because he's got other commitments. So we're going to run through the normal things we run to really quickly, and then we're going to get him on and discuss with him what he's got to talk about. He's got a lot of great information to share with us, and I've been super excited ever since we set this up. But before we begin, let's talk about the fuel surcharge and the average price of fuel this week. This week, fuel increased almost 2 cents a gallon to the national average being 4.62 a gallon, and that made last week it was 464 or 460.4. Man, that's hard to say when you've got 2 decimal points. The fuel surcharge this week for Swift was 56.4 cents per mile, and last week it was 56.1. So it did go up 0.3 of a cent. And the West Coast fuel surcharge remained at 8 cents per mile, or I mean per gallon. Crud, I'm 8 cents per mile. 8 cents per mile. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put the ticker on the bottom, and this will have that fuel surcharge, which I totally just butchered. And then we're going to bring up our first and only guest today. I would ask if you guys have any questions for me to hold them till after we finish with the guest, and we'll get to that. Let's concentrate on him right now while he's here. We do have some other people that are live right now, so a bunch of people may see this on the rebroadcast. If you're watching it through the rebroadcast, just leave me a comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, I've asked this guest to come on the last Tuesday of every month. So after you see this show in the rebroadcast, feel free to come back at the end of February, the last Tuesday in February, and we'll have him back on here and we can get to your question then. You can also email me or leave me a comment with your questions, and I'll bring them up. As I've got several here from you guys that I'm going to ask him today, and then we'll go through the comments and get your questions as well. My guest is Trucker CFO Colton, and he appears on a weekly segment on Radio Nemo, the Dave Nemo show on satellite radio called Driving Your Dollars. And I'll be honest with you guys, I normally hate podcasts. This one's actually pretty good. You don't feel like you're being talked down to. There's a lot of great information there. And as you guys know, I've personally been using Trucker CFO for about a month now. I've been extremely happy with them. Their pricing is real competitive to what I paid with the last accounting agency that I used. And so we're going to bring him on real quick, and we're going to ask him some questions and try to familiarize ourselves with him. All right, here he comes. Hey, Colton, can you hear me okay?
I got you, Todd. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, and I appreciate the introduction.
Yes, sir. So to get started, because a lot of you guys may not be familiar with Trucker CFO, can you tell us a little bit about you guys and the services you offer, and tell us about your Driving Your Dollars segment? Because I listened to 2 or 3 of them, and I thought they were really good. So many podcasts, they tell you stuff like you don't know anything, and I felt like yours was right on the level, and it was a valuable investment of my time.
Oh, well, that's great to hear. I appreciate the feedback. Yeah, so Trucker CFO, we've been around for about 15 years. I know most of your listeners out there are familiar with ATBS. We are a competitor to ATBS. Probably the most important thing to make everybody know is that there's another option out there, and that's us. We do things in a lot of the same ways that ATBS does, especially with folks that are on the settlement type model with a motor carrier like you guys are. We're very familiar with Swift settlements and other settlements across the industry with other motor carriers. So we'll bring in those settlements and make sure that everything is captured, everything's done the way it should be, and you guys aren't missing out on any of those deductions. We really focus on independent contractors and owner operators with 1 to 40 trucks. So that includes small fleets. We have different types of offerings depending on what it is that you do and what it is you're trying to accomplish. I think that's one of the things that differentiates us is we don't try to fit a square peg into a circle, right? So we've got different services depending on what it is you do. So although we have services very similar to what many of you folks are used to seeing out there from other competitors, we also have models and services that are going to be more traditional in terms of accounting firms, CPA firms, using QuickBooks, those types of things to help people scale and grow their businesses. As you grow your business, as you become more sophisticated, the type of offering that you get with just a one truck independent contractor model is not the same as what you need if you've got 5, 10, 15, 20 trucks, and perhaps a small accounting department inside of your office. So we really try to look at that and specialize our services to what it is you're trying to accomplish and where you're trying to take your business.
Yeah, I can say personally, I've experienced that already. My taxes are a little complicated, and the agent I work with is great. She's had to call me a couple of times for clarification, which to me is a positive. At the last place I was at, they would just make assumptions and not call. And my agent's been very personalized, and so I get what you're saying about them being able to kind of grow with your business and adapt with your business. So I saw this in your website. I went through and looked at your website, and I would encourage everybody to check out the frequently asked questions section because it's also really good. It's got questions that normal people would ask and not your typical frequently asked questions that are dumb stuff that nobody would ask. But it asks, and occasionally I'll get truck drivers that'll ask this: what's the difference between you guys and the ATBSs of the world and these big box accounting places that are at your Walmarts and your Rapid Refunds? Why does a independent contractor need a professional tax company as opposed to these big box accounting companies?
Yeah, well, so starting with the competition, if you compare us to them, we really provide a more personal touch. I like to tell people you're not just a number when you're with Trucker CFO. I think oftentimes people associate big with good, and that's not always the case. I think stuff gets lost with that size. We are, although a competitor, we are definitely not the same size as the others. And with that, it allows us some flexibility and the ability to provide better customer service within the organization. I am the CEO of Trucker CFO. I'm the owner, and it may very well be that you're going to be talking with me. I'm a certified public accountant out of the state of Utah. You may, based on your situation, be talking to me. You may be talking to an enrolled agent within our organization. But whatever the case is, you're going to get a much more personalized touch from Trucker CFO than what you get. And then when it comes to those other national franchise-based type offerings that you can get out there, I think the biggest difference there is you need to really be aware of the fact that most of the people you're going to deal with at that type of a company have come in and gone through maybe 3 or 4 weeks of training. They are generally seasonal type tax preparers. And even if they did it the prior year, they've gone and done something else during the rest of the year. They're not staying close to what's going on, right? So we are very close to what's going on. We're talking about it in our podcast. I'm talking about it on the radio. My employees are staying very close to that. And we know and understand your business. We've got other Swift clients, clients from all across the industry in many different types and sizes of operations. We know the industry. And so you're going to get that specialized touch from us there as well.
That's a great point. That's something I wanted to ask you about too. Typically at the beginning of each year, there's a lot of tax changes. and I'm sure you're more familiar with the trucking related ones. Are there any 2023 changes that are coming to trucking in the way of taxes that we need to be aware of, or is it pretty much the same as 2022?
Well, so with 2022 taxes that we are now going to be filing over the next several months, there are definitely some changes. Most of the changes have to do with the expiration of some of the COVID related perks that got put out there with regards to some of the deductions that were allowed, even some of the depreciation standards that were extended. We're going to start to see those start to scale back. And that's going to continue for the 2023 tax year. We're going to start to see some of those things get pulled back. A good example is if you have children and you're claiming the child tax credit for 2021, that child tax credit was expanded to up to $3,000. For 2022, that's been scaled back to what it was in prior years. So that's a lot of what we're seeing right now is a scale back of some of those perks that came with COVID-related legislation.
So I've got another question since you mentioned 2022. I saw a statistic that said 10 to 15% of people have unfiled taxes or they owe back taxes or things along those lines. Is that something that your company can help with if a driver says, hey, I haven't done any of my 2022 stuff yet, can you guys help? Or I owe from 2 years ago, I didn't pay my taxes. Is that something you guys can assist with as well?
Yeah, that's a big part of what we do. What you're talking about there is tax problem resolution. A lot of people don't understand that within the industry that we are in, which is taxes and accounting, there's different segments as well. And so there's the preparation side of taxes, which is you have the bookkeeping, you take that, and you then prepare the tax return on a timely basis. And then there's the tax problem resolution, which is where what you just said, if somebody hasn't filed, or if they have back tax liabilities that they still owe, yes, we can work with them on that. It starts with a compliance check. I'm sure people are familiar with the commercials that they're hearing on Sirius XM radio, seeing on cable TV, that essentially, and I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit, but essentially they say, do you owe $50,000 or more in back taxes? Give us a call. And then it kind of stops there. And what they don't tell you is that they're going to charge you $50,000 to take care of that $50,000 tax debt. And I'm not too far off. They are really expensive, and they have to be expensive because they're spending millions of dollars in marketing on these very expensive channels, from the radio to cable TV. You know, Fox News, it's like every other commercial seems to be this kind of an advertisement. So come to us. Again, we know what it is that you're dealing with, and we're not going to charge you up front. A lot of these folks, they're going to take a retainer. It's going to be a salesperson that is trying to convince you to buy into their product. They're going to want $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 up front, and then they're going to diagnose your problem. That's not the way we do it. We're going to have a consultation with you. We're going to talk about what's going on, and then we're going to take you through a compliance test, see what the issue is, and then tell you what we think can be done. I think oftentimes with the marketing that's out there, you hear about the Fresh Start program, you hear about all these different things with the IRS, and people think that no matter what's going on, if they owe $50,000, that they can just go to the IRS and say, hey, Mr. IRS, I only want to pay $800, and that the IRS is going to accept that. That's not the way it works. It's a very specific model that's in place. We understand that model, and we can tell you fairly early on whether or not you're going to qualify for something like an offer in compromise, or if instead you're going to need to do something like an installment agreement or there's several different options out there. But to answer your question, yeah, we do that kind of work, and we do it often. And that 10 to 15% number, possibly you heard that from one of our podcasts. It's pretty spot on. So that means 10 to 15% of your listeners probably have a problem, and they need to give us a call. The other thing I want to touch on here real quick with this is the IRS. I'm sure most people are familiar with this. They've just been given essentially $80+ billion to spend over the next 10 years. Through COVID and leading up to COVID, there was a real lack of enforcement on the part of the IRS. And that lack of enforcement has led to some complacency with taxpayers. because they just, they haven't heard from the IRS. You can't get through to the IRS when you call them. And we're starting to see that change. And so for folks that do have these issues and they're aware of it, taking the head in the sand approach is just not going to work anymore. You got to get this stuff taken care of. And you're going to be much better off if you're proactive and you're contacting the IRS and saying, hey, I want to get this taken care of. Give me some time to work through it. That's a much better situation than waiting for the IRS to call you and say, hey, I'm going to lien or levy different aspects of your life. And it can become a real big problem.
Yeah, and I've even heard guys say, well, I'll just send them what I can every week on my back taxes. And I tell them the penalties and interest will eat you alive. You're much better contacting somebody like Trucker CFO and let them go to work for you, because they might be able to alleviate some of those penalties and interest.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, you would never show up to court on your own without an attorney. At least you should not show up to court without an attorney, right? And although we have the right to represent ourselves based on the Constitution, most courts and most judges will not allow you to do that because they recognize that you're not competent enough in the law to sufficiently represent yourself. It is the same thing when it comes to the IRS. It's like sending the wolves into the hen house when it comes to working with the IRS. They oftentimes are going to put on this nice and bright and smiley face to make you feel like you're comfortable, and it's not going to end up that way. Other times, you're going to know right out of the gate that you're out of your elements when it comes to working with the IRS, and it can get real scary. So, it's not my job to try and scare you. I'm just being real. They've got $80 billion to spend, and politics aside, they're going to spend it. And a lot of that money is going to be spent on talking to and reviewing the taxes of small business. And your listeners are pretty much small businesses.
Well, let's switch gears to a happier topic. Are there any deductions that you found that drivers aren't aware of that they're missing? Or are there things that are what I'd call mistaken deductions, things that people think, oh yeah, I can deduct that, and they really should not be deducting those things?
Well, so we've got a list, and many companies do have lists of, hey, you can deduct this or that. We've got a list of about 140, I think, common deductions that every owner, operator, and independent contractor should be looking at. It doesn't mean that it's going to be allowable for your business. Every business is unique. Even within this industry, even within the Swift, group of independent contractors, there are going to be deductions that might be applicable to one that are not to another. And the way the IRS looks at this is they say, is it ordinary and necessary to your business operation? What might be ordinary and necessary to one company is not necessarily ordinary and necessary to another. And so it really takes an evaluation of your specific business. Clearly, fuel is going to be ordinary and necessary to a truck driver. There's no, unless you're driving one of the new Tesla trucks, I guess. There's no way you're gonna get around it and not have to buy fuel. On the flip side, there's going to be things, we oftentimes see people deducting the cost of dog foods for their pet chihuahua, call it. And they say, well, it's security. It's going to really depend on the IRS agent you get auditing your books as to whether or not that's going to be allowable or not. We don't want to give the IRS any reason to question a deduction. And so if it's a pet chihuahua, more than likely, it's not going to be considered ordinary and necessary to the security of your truck. No, it's a pet. Then again, if you've got a big old German Shepherd, or if you've got some other setup where maybe you've got your own yard and you've got guard dogs in that yard, then maybe it is going to be ordinary and necessary. So for the most part, we're going to look at those types of deductions. We're going to evaluate it based on your particular circumstances and decide whether we think it's ordinary and necessary. And our goal overall is to keep you safe from the IRS, right? Let's say the food for your Chihuahua over the year cost you $600 or $700. I don't know. Maybe it's more. Is that $600 or $700 deduction that at the end of the day is going to save you maybe $70 to $100 of taxes? Is it really worth the headache of going through an audit and having the IRS slap you with penalties And as a result of that deduction, wanting to look into further details of your life, is it worth it? Generally,
Exactly.
our answer is no.
Exactly. All right, let's switch to another one. And I've heard competing theories on this, so I'm real interested to see what you'll say about it. Quarterly taxes. I've had accountants tell me, don't do your quarterly taxes, just pay at the end of the year because the penalties you'll pay for quarterly taxes aren't significant enough to compare to what you'll pay in accounting. I think I know the answer to this, but how do you feel about that? Should you be paying your quarterly taxes or just take care of it lump sum at the end of the year?
Well, the quarterly, the estimated tax penalty that is associated with not paying your estimated taxes is essentially interest. That's what it comes down to. The IRS is saying, we were due that money throughout the year. You didn't pay it, and so we're going to charge you interest for it. So if you think that you can make a better return than the current interest rate, then maybe you choose not to pay it. If you don't think you can beat that interest rate, then you should pay it. So it's I always tell people it's better to pay it than not. My goal is to make sure, and our goal at Trucker CFO is to make sure you keep as much money in your pocket as possible. And in order to do that, you want to pay the IRS as little money as possible, and that includes interest and penalties. And so, outside of that first year of operation, if you are profitable, you need to pay a certain percentage of your overall tax liability. That liability can be based on what you did the prior year, or it can be based on what you're doing in the current year. Those are the two kind of options. Again, unless you're in your first year of operation. If you're in your first year of operation, then what the IRS says is, well, you don't necessarily know what you need to pay because you haven't done this before. And so we're going to give you a little bit of a safe harbor and you don't need to pay it. But outside of that, I always tell people you should be paying it. The other thing, aside from any of the penalties and interest that I think is important to note here is business hates surprises. I personally hate surprises, but business really hates surprises. And you see that in Wall Street with the prices of stocks and whatnot. If it doesn't matter whether it's a really good surprise or a bad surprise on Wall Street. If they have surprises, it can negatively impact the stock. And it's no different with your small business. If you get to the end of the year and you go and have your taxes prepared, even if you were trying to prepare for that tax liability, and in your head you thought it was $5,000, and you get done and the tax preparer tells you, well, no, you owe $7,000. Well, that's a $2,000 surprise you weren't ready for and you didn't have set aside, and that can be damaging to your business. So if you've paid that over the course of the year, that surprise, you're able to minimize it. And that's what we want to do, is minimize the overall amount that you're going to either owe or get back at the time that we do your taxes. We always do our estimates for the quarterly taxes based on the current year results. We don't look, a lot of times with your tax returns, you're going to get 4 estimated tax payments, and it's going to basically take your current year liability, divide it by 4, and they're going to say, pay this amount in estimated taxes next year. And that's great. It's going to protect you, but it's not the most accurate way, because over time, in the next year, you may do better, you may do worse than what you did the prior year. If you did better, you're going to end up owing more. If you did worse, you're going to get some money back. We don't want to be in a situation that you're giving the government an interest-free loan, and we don't want to be in a situation where you end up owing a lot more. So we try to estimate it based on what you're doing this year, what your filing status is, what other things you have going on in your life. We're going to tell you that estimate, and then at the end of the day, it's ultimately up to you to pay it.
So this is a question I got asked, and I thought I knew the answer to it, but I want to bounce it off of you anyway. Is it better to pay your taxes from a business account or a personal account or a credit card or a money order? What do you recommend is the proper way to pay the IRS?
Well, you can pay it from either a personal or business accounts. I would say it doesn't really matter, especially for like a single owner operator. If you're in a partnership, if you've got other stuff going on, it's probably best to take a distribution from the business and have that distribution go to the owners. and pay their tax liability from that distribution. You can pay it directly from the business accounts, or you can just give the money to the owners and let them pay it from their personal accounts. When it comes to credit cards, I would recommend not paying with a credit card. You're going to pay additional interest. You're going to pay additional fees associated with that credit card payments. Essentially, you're going to have to gross up your tax liability by 3% or so, right? The IRS is not going to give you a 3% discount on your taxes just because you're paying with a credit card. They want their full amount, and so does the credit card company. So you're going to pay more. Why pay more when you don't need to? Save that money, get it built up, pay it out of a personal or business account. I don't care which, either one works just fine.
Okay. And how do you know, this is a question I get asked a lot too, and I've been running from it. When do you know it's time to incorporate?
That's a good question. So there's two parts to that question that we have to consider. There's the legal aspect, and then there's the tax aspect. I have to be really careful. I'm not an attorney. I cannot give legal advice. So get that off the table right away. I can give tax advice. I'm a CPA and do it all day long. That being said, there are legal considerations and legal protections that come with setting up a business entity. And those legal protections depend on the type of business entity you set up. The primary benefit that you get from doing so is a separation of your personal assets from your business assets. And really, you should do that, in my opinion, out of the gates. The minute you're out there making money for yourself, there is a risk that something bad might happen that could expose your personal assets to liability, and we don't want that. And then there's other ways to protect yourself with insurance and umbrella policies and things of that nature that you can look into. But the business entity is a real good one. When it comes to the tax side of it, there's really a need for some analysis there because there's a lot of considerations to take. Within the transportation industry, we're looking at things, such as how many trucks do you want? Is your goal to just operate this one truck, go out and make the money from that one truck that you can? That's perfectly fine. But if your goal is to grow, get a second truck, third truck, maybe you want to have 40 trucks down the road. There's some different things that we want to consider there, possibly multiple entities in that case, a lot of different things to look at. And then we also want to consider things such as what is the impact of self-employment tax? Which entities are subject to self-employment tax and which ones are not? And when are you making enough money to offset the administrative costs that come with some of these different types of tax entities, like an S corporation? When are you making enough money to say, hey, it is time to do an S corporation versus paying the self-employment tax? For those that don't know, the self-employment tax is effectively the way you pay into Social Security and Medicare on your self-employed earnings. You're going to cover that at about 15%. It's 15 and change. And you're paying the employer side and the employee side. And that self-employment tax is going to be calculated for entities such as sole proprietorships, single member and multi-member LLCs, partnerships. You can opt out of that by filing as an S corporation, but then there are other requirements that come with it, such as the need for payroll and payroll services. You have to take a reasonable salary. That's another area that the IRS is really going to start cracking down on with some of this money that they've gotten, is what they call these reasonable compensation audits, where they look at S corporations and make sure that you are paying yourself enough money. So your listeners, if you're an S corporation and you're not taking a reasonable salary, you better do it, because the IRS is going to be looking at that in very short order.
Give yourself a raise. So you do have to W-2 yourself then when you do those types of things.
When you are an S corporation, you are required to W-2 yourself. When you are a single member LLC, you are required not to W-2 yourself. So it's very important to understand those differences. We see all the time folks that just have an LLC filing as a sole proprietorship or partnership that are taking salary, a W-2 income, out of that business entity, and that is flat wrong. You are subject to certain penalties from the IRS by taking W-2 income in that case. Whereas if you're an S corporation, it's the exact opposite. And all of this centers around this concept of self-employment tax. When you are paying self-employment tax, you are contributing to Social Security and Medicare. So there's no need, as the owner of an LLC filing as a sole proprietor or partnership, to have W-2 income, because you're already contributing to Social Security and Medicare through the self-employment tax. Whereas when you are an S corporation, you are not contributing to Social Security and Medicare through self-employment tax. You are then required to have the W-2 income, because that's where your contribution comes from. And that's why they want it to be a reasonable salary, is so that you're contributing enough for what it is that you're doing.
I see. So also, some people wanted me to ask about a C Corp, and I don't know a whole lot about the differences between an S Corp and a C Corp, or if that's something that people need. It sounds like in my situation, I might need to do the LLC as a sole proprietor.
Yeah, so C Corp, I will just say right out front, there are very, very few circumstances, in my opinion, especially from the tax perspective, that anybody out there needs to have a C Corp. We do see it where somebody goes to one of the online companies that will set up a business entity for you, and they don't really understand what they're choosing as they go through that process, and they'll end up with a C corporation. The problem with the C corporations is they are subject to double taxation. Okay, so what that means is a C corp is a taxable entity in and of itself. That when you file a tax return for the C corporation, there is an associated tax liability that is built into that tax return. And whereas, let me back up, whereas with the other entities, partnership, LLC, S corporation, those are all what are called pass-through entities. So when you file a tax return for those types of entities, there's no associated tax liability on that specific tax return. You're either going to have a Schedule C going through to your 1040, you're going to have a K1 coming from those other entities that is then reported on your personal return. And that is where your tax liability is calculated, is on the personal level. So getting back to the C Corp, you have a tax liability at the C Corp level, and then you are taxed again on any amounts of money, dividends, that you're pulling out of the C corporation. There's an additional tax on those. So when it's all said and done, you're going to have a higher effective tax rate in using a C corporation than what you would have had you not done the C corporation and done some other entity. And that's very important. There was some considerations that we looked at back in 2017 when the Trump tax cuts came through. There were some questions about, well, maybe now it might be beneficial to do a C corp. Maybe the effective tax rates might be in line and make it worth it. And where that rate ended up, it still is, in our opinion, not in your best interest to have a C corp. And like I say, it's very, very rare that we do that when we intend to do it. And like I say, others will do it when they did not intend to or did not understand the consequences of doing so.
Yeah, one more reason to deal with professionals and get advice from professionals instead of doing it on your own. One last question before we jump into the comments and get some of those questions. People wanted to get you to discuss per diem, what it is, why it's important, and the question I've got about it is, how do I report it to you guys? I'm wondering if I can write it on my monthly deal that I send in with my expenses on it, or if there's a special form for that. But a lot of people had questions about per diem, if there's any changes to it coming this year, things like that.
Yeah, good questions. So there is no change from 2021 to 2022. It's staying the same. In terms of how you report it to us, we just need to know the number of full days that you were out on the road and the number of partial days that you were out on the road. Those partial days, you cannot aggregate them, if that makes sense. You can't just add everything up and give us one number, because there's different rates. A partial day, you're going to get 3/4 of that daily rate. And then you're going to get the full rate, $69 a day if you're inside the US. The thing that has changed for 2021 and 2022 is that, and this is one of the COVID-related measures that has not yet expired, and that is you're going to get 100% of that per diem deduction. It used to be that you would take the rate, again, $69 in today's world, multiply it by the number of days, and then on the tax return, there was a calculation that reduced that amount to 80% of the overall amount. So effectively, you got 80% of that $69 a day. With COVID, they now are giving you 100% of that deduction for tax years 2021 and 2022. It will then revert back, at least as of right now, revert back to that 80% come 2023. So the year we are in now, you're getting that 80% again.
I see. All right, let's jump into some questions here. Let me find a good one for you.
Trucker Todd, real quick, I want to say one other thing about per diem, and that is for S corporations. If you are an S corporation, a greater than 2% owner of an S corporation, you cannot take per diem as a deduction through your tax return, through the business tax return. Meaning you can't do the standard, however many days times $69 a day, put it onto the tax return and take that deduction. You are disallowed from that deduction. However, you can take the per diem deduction as a reimbursement through your W-2 income. And that is what we do with our clients. We do that reimbursement. You do have to have the actual cash to pay yourself out. But in essence, what you're doing is you're taking a tax-free distribution from your business on the amount of that per diem that you're taking. If that doesn't make sense to folks, because I covered it pretty quick, give us a call. We're happy to talk to you about that concept. But just know that if you are an S corporation and per diem is being calculated on your tax return, you might run into some problems, and we need to have a conversation about how to take it through your W-2 income.
What's your thoughts on companies for company drivers that do it per diem? I worked for a company that it was weird how they did it, but they said you paid less taxes because they were putting a per diem in there as a company driver. Do you generally feel that's a good idea or a bad idea when companies do that?
There are pros and cons. The pros are just what you said. It's going to lower your taxable income. Now, some of the companies that are doing this, and it's usually your smaller trucking companies that try and get away with this kind of stuff, they will take a larger percentage of your income and allocate it to per diem. Maybe it's a 50-50 or 60-40 type deal. And you won't get into trouble for that, but the trucking company that's doing it that way could very likely get into trouble for over allocation of income to a non-taxable type classification, such as per diem. So again, the nice part is it's reducing your income. You might have total gross income of $80,000, and they're splitting it. Maybe 55,000 is actual taxable income and the rest is per diem. You're not going to pay tax on that per diem amount. That's nice. You're only being taxed on the 55. The problem with it is if you're in a situation where you're trying to get a loan, maybe it's a car loan and a mortgage for your, a house, you want to buy a house. The people that are giving you that loan will not count the per diem portion as income. And so you're only going to qualify off of in that example, you're only going to qualify off of the 55,000, not the full 80 that you're being paid. And that can be problematic for some people.
I see. Okay, here's one that I think this is more of a misconception question. I want to put this up for you. But a lot of people, before they become an independent contractor, they get these huge tax refunds. And then after they become an independent contractor, they think their deductions are going to save them and that they're not going to have any tax liability. Before you respond, I just want to say that my taxes this year was about $13,000. So, and I had a ton of deductions. So, if I think this guy, it's a little unrealistic to think that you shouldn't owe any taxes for a while just because of your deductions. Is that generally what you find too, or are you finding guys that are getting $12,000 and $13,000 tax refunds because of all their deductions?
Yeah, there are circumstances, and we have clients where year in and year out, they're making money and they don't have a tax liability. Usually those situations are for folks that have a fleet of trucks and they are rotating the purchasing of those trucks in and out. So each year they may have 4 or 5 new trucks, and we are taking accelerated depreciation on all 4 or 5 of those trucks. And so they've got this huge write-off, and it's able to offset any income that they may have. Generally speaking, especially if you're a single truck owner, operator, independent contractor, if you are making money, you're going to pay taxes. And if you run into these truck stop accountants, I like to call them, you run into somebody who tells you otherwise, that, hey, I've got this nice trick that's going to make it so you never have to pay taxes. Be wary of that situation. And more than likely, they're doing stuff with your taxes that they shouldn't be doing. Taxes is just a way of life. It's just something you got to get used to. We obviously are going to do everything we can to minimize your tax liability. We don't want you paying a dime more than you need to, but we're also going to follow the law, and we're going to follow the rules we have set within our organization in terms of what's deductible, what's not. And when we have a gray area, we're going to talk about it within our organization and also with the client to make sure we're minimizing that. We're also going to strategize. I think it's very important for me to note that as an independent contractor, owner, operator, you're self-employed, whether you've been doing this for a long time or it's something new to you, it is important that you understand that the days of just showing up to a tax preparer in February, March, or April, or maybe September if you file an extension, the days of just showing up with that preparer and saying, here's my stuff, do my taxes, and thinking that you're going to minimize your tax liability, that should be a thing of the past. You need to change the paradigm in your head of the way taxes are done. Taxes for you as a self-employed individual is at a minimum, a once a week thing. Yeah, maybe a once a month thing, but that's not ideal. And if you can do it every day, great. But you need to be thinking about these things and have a plan in place of organizing your receipts, organizing all of this information in a way that's going to allow me as a tax preparer and our Trucker CFO team to work with you in a proactive way. We want to be proactive about your taxes, not reactive. Oftentimes when we're doing taxes in a reactive way, we're seeing opportunities missed where we could have done this or that to impact your tax liability and bringing it down that we now can't do. It's too late, right? And so if you're working with us throughout the year, we can make recommendations and strategize with you in a way to give you guidance on things you can do now to impact your tax liability when we actually do your taxes months into the future.
Okay, let's jump into another one. Kathleen actually answered this question in the comments, but I'm going to put it up for everybody else that may not have seen her reply. Do they do company driver taxes? I think he said they will do a company driver's taxes. Are the rates the same for company drivers, or is it a different rate for company drivers?
No, we have a different package for tax preparation for company drivers. Generally speaking, it's going to be $199 for that tax return. There's other things that could come into play that would result in a higher price, but that's going to cover most people that just have W-2 income.
Okay, I see. And here's one, I want to respond to it, and then I want to get your response too. Guy says back when he was an owner operator, he used TurboTaxes and did his own taxes, paid a total of $200 a year, and wants to know what Trucker CFO would charge. I would say a couple of things there. One, taxes, like he just mentioned, have changed a lot over the past few years. And there probably was a time when you could go once a year to your tax professional and hand them everything and say, do my taxes. But now you need somebody that you're walking with, like he said, week after week, that when there's changes, you can discuss it with them and they can offer you advice. And they're up to date on the latest things that's going on in the tax code, because you're driving a truck, you're busy, you're going to miss things that they're focusing on and seeing on a day-to-day basis. And I just want to remind everybody down in the ticker, I've got their website and I've got their 800 number. If we don't get to your question today, contact them and talk with them. Tell them you've watched this show, and they'll be glad to help you and answer any questions that you've got. And what are your thoughts on TurboTaxes and things like that?
So I would never recommend somebody using TurboTax to do their own taxes as an owner, operator, independent contractor. Here's the deal. I personally went to years of school to do what I do. I'm taking continuing education. I'm talking with truckers every single day. We are working with them and understanding their situations. We know what's going on. You are far more likely to make a mistake using a program such as TurboTax, or going to somebody else who thinks they know what they're doing, you're far more likely to have mistakes made. And those mistakes are not small mistakes. I've got an example right now. I'm working with a guy. He's a fleet owner. Has used a CPA in the past, a family friend, but a CPA. And in working with us, I've been able to save them $40,000. $40,000.
Wow.
Okay. Now that's not going to be everybody's situation, but $40,000 is a lot of money to anybody. I don't care who you are. $40,000 goes a long ways, even in today's environment. There are things that we're going to do. Our services provide an ROI, return on your investment. And if you think if you're trying to just save a little bit of money by paying $200 to get your taxes done versus paying somewhere between $199 for a company driver I think on the high end, if you've got a business entity like an S corporation or a partnership, those tax returns are going to be somewhere in the ballpark of $750 to $850, depending on other services you may have with Trucker CFO. That money is going to be well worth it. I guarantee you. You're going to have a return on that investment, and it's going to save you money in the long run. And that's the value. There is a value to having a professional, having somebody who knows what they're doing within your industry, and there is a value to having a company that is going to treat you like a person, that's going to have that personal touch and is going to get it done in a timely manner. That's what we hang our hats on, are those things. And that is something that we feel is missing out there right now in the world of what we do. And I think if people give us a try, they're going to find that out pretty quick.
I agree. Here's a good question. Somebody's needing some clarification. Is self-employment tax in addition to what I would owe the end of the year or quarterly, or is it included in that?
Yeah, so great question. Self-employment tax is it is a separate calculation on your tax return. So if your business entity is such that you are subject to self-employment tax, there is a line item on the tax return for self-employment tax. It's going to be, again, roughly 15% of the net business income is going to show up on that line item. There's some intricacies to that, but that's just kind of a rough calculation you can count on. In addition to that amount, you're going to have your income tax, and that income tax is going to vary depending on, married, single, head of household, number of dependents. All those things are going to factor into what your overall tax rate is. And then you go to the tax tables to figure out what that tax is going to be. But you then add those two together and then subtract your credits and the amounts that you've already paid, whether through W-2 income or estimated taxes. And that then is going to result in what you either owe as a remainder or get back as a refund.
Okay, we got a couple more here. Somebody else is agreeing with you. If you're not paying taxes, then your business isn't showing a profit. After a few years, that's a red flag to the IRS. Yeah, I would think anybody that's claiming they lost money or didn't make money for 2 or 3 years, the IRS is going to be like, well, why do you keep doing it then?
Right. Yeah. You've got to show a profit eventually, right? No business, in theory, no business can survive perpetually without making a profit. That's what you're there to do. And so if you're not doing that, it is going to be a red flag. And here's what I say about red flags. Red flags are okay if they're legitimate, right? But other red flags are just simply not worth it. And some red flags are red flags because they are illegitimate. And so you want to make sure that if you're doing it the right way and you've got all your ducks in a row, if it results in a red flag, who cares? We'll be able to justify that and substantiate it with the IRS. But if you're doing things, as an example, taking per diem deduction when you don't have a tax home, meaning if you don't have an apartment or property or home that you go home to, you don't qualify for per diem. You can't take 365 days as per diem. You've got to have something else. That's the whole purpose of per diem, is you're away from home. So those types of red flags you got to be careful of because they're not justifiable.
I got one more from me before I ask the next question. Is there a less likely chance a person will be audited if they use a professional service like yours as opposed to a TurboTax, or does the IRS just blanket look at everybody the same and they have certain trigger points?
You're going to love my answer here. A little bit of both. So not
Okay.
very helpful. And here's why. The auditing standards are such that it really is just kind of random. That's the way it's supposed to be. But that being said, the randomness is escalated as you have some of these red flags. And we talk about this in some of our podcasts. A red flag, for example, could be that a lot of your numbers end in zeros, right? We'll ask somebody, how much did you pay for your cell phone throughout the year? $1,200. How much did you pay for fuel? $36,000. If you have a lot of those types of things, that's a red flag to the IRS, and those types of things are going to increase the likelihood of you being audited. It's going to increase the randomness. You're going to be scored differently within the IRS system. So you want to be careful of those things. And when it comes to whether or not we are able to minimize that, yes, if you're using our services, we're not going to be able to decrease the randomness overall, but we will be able to decrease the randomness in terms of those red flags, because you're going to have fewer red flags if you're using our services and we're doing things exactly as they're supposed to be done.
Okay, here's another good question for you. Is charity deductions and medical deductions worth it compared to a standard deduction rate?
Okay, yeah, good question. So what he's getting at here is the standard deduction in comparison to the itemized deduction. Itemized deductions have changed significantly since the Trump tax cuts back in 2017. There's a lot fewer of them, and that's where company drivers really got hurt, because they used to also be able to take the per diem deduction on their tax return, and it's gone away because of these changes. But overall, if you have more itemized deductions, the charitable contributions, the medical deductions, your mortgage interest, those types of deductions, if they outweigh your standard deduction, by all means, take the itemized deduction. It's going to lower your tax rate. And so we ask people for the information in a way that allows us to compare that and do it both ways. If we compare it and the standard deduction is greater for you, then that's the one we'll take, and vice versa.
Okay, here's the next one. They want to know if there's any kind of guarantee or service that Trucker CFO give to customers against audits.
So we will not give a guarantee that you will not be audited, and nor should any other business provide a guarantee. If you've got somebody saying we guarantee you won't be audited, that's just not a guarantee that they can promise, because of the randomness of audits. However, if you are audited and something comes up that was the result of an error on our part, we're going to cover you for that. We won't. The tax is what the tax is. If you owe a certain amount of tax and the IRS determines that you do owe that tax through an audit, you're going to have to cover the tax. And that's pretty much the way all tax preparation firms do it. However, we will cover the interest and the penalty associated with that error if something does come up.
Okay, here's a good question. They want to know, do you prepare taxes strictly for truckers, or can you help with other businesses as well?
We can help with other businesses. Our business is primarily truckers. That's the way we market ourselves. We are Trucker CFO. That's almost exclusively where our clients come from, is from the trucking industry. That being said, we have clients who have done rideshare. We have clients that have farms, so we're doing Schedule Fs. We have clients that do other things and have other businesses going on. Perhaps it's a spouse that's doing something else at home. We see a lot of stuff, that especially the spouses are doing at home in terms of like online sales and other stuff with cannabis. And there's just all kinds of stuff that goes on. And yes, we will do those types of taxes for you and include a Schedule C or whatever the case may be for that type of situation and get it done for you.
Okay, we're coming up to the point where you've got to take off. Is there anything we didn't cover that you want to cover, or anything you want to touch on before you have to leave?
Well, sounds like I'm going to be on, and I'm excited to be on the last Tuesday of every month. So we're going to have an opportunity to talk about a lot more. So nothing I need to dive into right now. I will just say we've got our tax season guide. It's an ebook that's going to be released here within a week. It'll probably be late this week, if not over the weekend. It's going to have a lot of great information. You can get that by going to our website. Once it posts, there will be a link right on our homepage where people can get that tax season guide. You don't have to, it's about 40 pages. You don't have to read all 40 pages. There's going to be a nice guide there that will give you certain topics to discuss and read about and learn about. And then if you're looking for more information, you've got our information down there in the ticker with our websites and our phone number. Give us a call. You can also chat with us through our website. There's a nice little function there where you can pull up, and there will be a live person there during business hours to chat with you. And beyond that, appreciate the time. I look forward to helping anybody that's looking for another option, another alternative to doing these types of things and helping you out.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, and I'm going to leave that information in the ticker every week, and I'll also have it in the description of my video, and I'll put it in the comments afterwards as well. You guys give Trucker CFO a call, and he'll be happy. He or his staff will be happy to answer your questions, and we'll see you at the last Tuesday of February. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you.
All right, talk to you later.
Bye. All righty, we've got that wrapped up. I'm sorry we didn't get everybody's questions in, and but he had a limited time tonight. In the future, he's going to be able to go longer, and we'll get a lot more of your questions. Tim's asking when you should go from a sole proprietor to an LLC. It was my understanding that he recommended doing it pretty soon after you become an independent contractor. He talked about the different ones, and he recommended an LLC as a sole proprietor, but said in some cases an S Corp might be a better fit. I can also tell you now that he's off the air, they're super friendly, super easy to talk to, and I really, you know, I don't want to badmouth the other guys that I left to come here, but I wouldn't have put them on the show if they weren't everything that's being advertised. And you saw tonight, people would ask questions, and he didn't give short yes, no answers. He took the time to really try to delve into whatever your concern was. And that's been my experience with everybody I've dealt with there. And so, yeah, some of these questions that are more complicated, like right here, OTR Vic, on an S Corp, how do I show proof on what I'm paying myself through my business, for example, if I'm applying for a car loan? And Kathleen, who's one of the people that work there at the office, says, we've got your answer, give us a call. Yeah, give them a call, because this is why I've avoided tax questions on here. Everybody's situation is a little bit different, and you want to get on there and tell them the details, tell them your concerns, and let them help you find a solution. I think you're going to be glad you called, and so just give them a shot. And like I said, if you're not sold yet, come back the last Tuesday of February. He'll be on again, and we'll go through the questions. I asked a lot that were my personal questions and questions you guys had fed me, but next time I'm not going to have near as many questions, and so I'm going to be relying on you guys a lot heavier to give me good questions to ask. Okay, John says, I have a question for you, Todd. How long until I can switch to Trucker CFO? If you're at Swift, which I believe you are, you can switch from day one. You're not required to use ATBS. You're not required to do anything regarding accounting or taxes. You can use the CPA of your choice, and all you do is contact Rapid Response, or actually, no, I'm telling you wrong. You have to contact ATBS or whoever you're using for your accounting and cancel them, and then you would contact Trucker CFO, and it's a very simple process to sign up. Call them, and they'll help you, walk you through the process. It's going to be easier to do now than if you wait till September, because you've just got, you know, 4 or 5 weeks worth of stuff to send them. But if you wait, it's going to be harder. the longer you go. So yeah, definitely give them a call, and if nothing else, compare them and see if it's a better fit for you. So here is a good question, Chris, and I didn't bring it up when he was on, but uh, W-2 versus 1099, it depends on your situation. I don't believe that everybody should be leasing a truck. I believe that it's a personal decision, and the first thing you should ask yourself is why you want to do it to begin with. You guys know I had a guy, I guess, a couple of weeks ago that was working for Estes, making $2,500 a week as a company driver. I don't believe he should lease a truck. He should probably stay a company driver. He's got a good deal. But there are situations where being 1099 makes more sense. Sometimes it's nothing more than you just want the freedom that comes with it. And for the purposes of this show, Trucker CFO can help you either way. They said whether you're a company driver or an independent contractor, they have packages for you and they'll work with you to help you out. Road Scholar, great show, Todd. Thanks, Road Scholar. I've been wanting to contact you. I'm going to do that in the next few days. I'm thinking about having you on the show because of what you do on your channel. And so I may be reaching out to you soon, or if you want to email me, my email's in the ticker and we'll try to put something together. But he's got a great channel. He's doing a lot of health and fitness and eating healthy on the road. And he's hit, I believe he said, over 100 Planet Fitnesses in the past year, or maybe it was more than that. Anyway, he's on a crusade to be healthy out here on the road, and I think he's got a lot of great information. Check out his channel, and we're going to try to get him on here and pick his brain in the coming weeks. So we'll see if we can put that together. Kathleen, great show, Trucker Todd. Thanks for all you're doing. Thank you. You guys don't know it. Y'all have took a lot of stress out of my life. I was really, really struggling with my past tax service, and you guys have made my life so much easier, and I really thank y'all for that. And that's the truth. So I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming in tonight. The mayor says, great show. Thank you. And he wants Road Scholar to come on the show too. Road Scholar says amen and 10-4. So you guys stay tuned. Like I said, he's over at Dart too. And so you guys know I've been away from Dart for about 7 or 8 months now. So it'll be good to get him on the show and find out what's changed at Dart, what's going on over there. I know a lot of you are still interested in Dart. And if you are, Road Scholar is a good source of information for that. So y'all check him out. And I think you'll be glad you did. He's got him a Kenworth over there, and I think he's doing pretty good. Thanks, Tim, man. I'm glad you're here tonight. This was a big help. Keep up the great shows, Todd. Thank you. That's honestly what I want to come out of this. If you guys want to call Trucker CFO and not mention me, that's fine. It'll help the show if you do, because it'll incentivize them to want to come on here more and want to do more stuff with the show. But if you want to call them and just pretend like you've never heard of me, that's okay too. I still think they offer a great service, and I still think they can help you. You guys got to remember the purpose of this channel has always been to help you guys. And I believe shows like this help. I believe taxes are scary for all of us. And so if you've got show ideas, shoot me an email. Tell me if you work at a great company and you want your company to come on here and talk to me. I'm going to give them the same fair treatment I gave Trucker CFO. And you'll see when I get Road Scholar on here. We're not going to trash talk Dart or nothing like that. I'm going to find out what's going on over there. I'm going to find out how he's cooking on the truck. I bought some stuff this week, George Foreman grill and some grilled chicken, things like that to cook on the truck. I'm going to find out, how he locates the Planet Fitnesses around the country. I know he parks there oftentimes. He takes his showers there. And so we're going to get him on here. I'm going to give your company a fair treatment if they come on, or your safety advisor or your dispatcher or whoever you get wanting to come on. So you guys continue the suggestions, talk to your companies, get them to come on. and we'll go from there. Thanks, Jerry. I appreciate that. Giving tax advice on YouTube can only end in tragedy. Absolutely. That's why I don't give tax advice. That's why I bring on professionals and ask their opinion and their thoughts. This guy said he went to school for years. He's still doing continuing education as things are constantly changing. And so I don't offer tax advice. I've always ran from it, and I by no means know everything. That's why I surround myself with smarter people that can answer these type of questions. But my goal of this video is nothing more than to get you guys to call them and get your questions answered, because it looks shady on my part when you guys ask me questions and I run for the hills and refuse to answer your tax questions. But yet at the same time, I claim to help you. So that's why I wanted to bring them on. And that's why I asked for a commitment from him to come on the last Tuesday of every month. I know you guys are going to get out here and work, and you're going to develop questions. Some of you are going to want to add a second truck. Some of you are going to want to upgrade your truck, and you're going to have questions about taxes. And I want to have guys on like this that can answer your questions, that know a lot more about it than me. But you're right. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to give you legal advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to give you medical advice. And I'm not a tax professional, so I'm not going to give you tax advice. But I might bring people on who are qualified to do that. And I feel like I probably ought to say this while I'm here. I'm not a representative of Swift. I am somebody that is contracted to them. I am very happy there, but I'm not a spokesperson for them. The views and opinions in this video are mine and mine alone. And so if anything I say sounds too good to be true, contact Swift or Trucker CFO or whoever I got on the show and get additional information. I'm just a one-man trucking operation trying to help you guys out as best as I can. I can 100% let everybody know that Trucker Todd's a genuine guy that cares about it. Well, thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. I try is all I can tell you, sometimes with more success than others, but I give it the old college try. So true. He's been a great help personally to me these last 2 weeks coming over to Swift. Well, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that too. I do want to touch on something, and we're well over the hour mark, so we may wrap it up here in a little bit if nobody has anything else. First of all, everybody that I didn't get to go back up to the top and say hi to, thank you for being here. It really means a lot to me. I'm sorry that I didn't get to you. I knew we had a limited time with Trucker CFO today, and I wanted to maximize that time and get to as many questions as I could. Also, in my home state of Texas, in the Dallas area, very dangerous weather conditions. They've shut down all non-essential businesses. There's black ice everywhere. A friend of mine called me. He was at the Lancaster terminal, and they locked the gates because they didn't feel like it was safe for anybody to be driving. Folks, use good judgment. If it's bad, pull over. Whatever's in your trailer is not as important as your life. Just stop the truck. And even if you've got 25 years experience like me, and you feel like you can drive through anything, like sometimes I feel when I get cocky, you can't control other people sliding into you. And it's just not worth bruising your CDL with incidents or accidents. Just pull over, get your load rescheduled, and live to fight another day. Because I don't care how good of a driver you are, there's drivers on the road that aren't as good as you. And I would just hate it if one of y'all got hurt or killed because you were pushing through when you knew you shouldn't have. SawWorks says, luckily I only pay federal, and we send money every 3 months than what we owe. So we never owe and receive direct deposit every February from the IRS. Wow, that's great. That's great. And I didn't get to ask him tonight about state income taxes and things like that. So that'll give me something to ask him next time he's on. But I live in Texas, so we don't have a state income tax. my wife's from Indiana. They do have a 3% state income tax, or that's what it was last time I checked. So I guess your taxes could vary substantially from state to state. And I didn't get to ask him about that tonight, or if your fee that you pay each month is different based on what state you live in. I can tell you that from my experience, they were very competitively priced with what ATBS was. And so I was happy with that. John says they also have the gates locked at Memphis too. Yeah, so I didn't realize the weather had extended that far over. I've been really busy today and hadn't got to look at a lot of weather reports. I'm out here in Arizona, and the weather's fine out here. There's some snow in the ditches, but the roads themselves are really, really good. I'm on my way to California, but I can't deliver till Thursday, so I've got plenty of time to get there. And so that's what's going on here. But you guys just use good judgment. And like I said, I don't care how good of a driver you are or how much you know or whatever. Just realize there's people on the road that aren't as smart as you, that aren't as good a driver as you. And it only takes a second to totally change your life. So be careful out there. I read that story, I believe it was last week, about the guy that jackknifed and he got charged with 2 manslaughter charges, which I think was a little bit of an overreaction, but you never know. I don't want to be doing a story about you in a week where you jackknifed and you're facing manslaughter charges. So y'all just be careful out there. And I'm not going to nag you or lecture you. We all hate safety lectures, and we all get plenty of them. Just please, please, please be careful. If you don't do nothing else I say, do that. It's always better to overpay than underpay. Good thing is you can use it for credit for the next year or take it back as a refund. Yeah, I would like it, and it's never happened. I'd like it at the end of the year if I owed them $5 or $10 or I broke even, but it never works out that way. Usually it works out me owing them several $1,000s at the end of the year. And so the reason I don't want a big refund is that means they've been holding my money all year. And you know what he said about, well, on quarterly taxes, they basically charge you interest if you don't pay them. But yet, if they owe you a refund, they don't pay you interest on that money. So I understand the logic behind why you do it. And I can even think of points in my life where I did larger deductions in my payroll so that I got bigger refunds at the end of the year. But what I found is I'd rather have that money week to week instead of getting it at a lump sum in the end of the year. And then that way I can use it as in a savings account or for whatever. Ryan Harris says safety is number one. It should be because we're all out here for our families, and we can't do nothing for our families if we're not alive. So, or we're in prison. So just use good judgment. That's all I'm going to say. I've always said I've got a really smart audience here, and you guys make me a better truck driver because of it, because of the questions you ask and things like that. So this is one of those times I want you to use some of that intelligence and good judgment to make good decisions for your safety. Slip Dog, winter storms has too bad on the revenue. Good show. Yeah, but you know, it doesn't have to be, and this falls under the category of home time too. You've got to, when you're planning how you're going to do things, you've got to think about, all right, I'm going to have a few bad weather days each year. So I'm going to have a few breakdown days each year. I'm going to have a few home time each year. And you've got to factor that into your business. If you're at a company where you got to work 350 days a year to have your head above water, then the problem's not that you need to work 365 days a year. The problem is either you're not managing your expenses or your revenue's not high enough. And it could be a combination of the two. But, you know, I'll be happy to look at that kind of stuff with you. I'm sure Trucker CFO could look at those kind of things with you and compare you to industry norms and things like that. But yeah, I've said it before. If you're making $600 a week and you're happy, then congratulations. But if you're making $1,800 a week and you think you should be making more, then let's take a look at your situation and see what we can do to improve it. And if you're making $3,000 a week and you're still not happy, then maybe you need to adjust your expectations a little bit, because at the end of the day, you're driving a truck. Now, there are certain segments of trucking that pay more, but I'm speaking specifically to dry van here. And so see what the industry norm is for what you're doing. And if it's not meeting your expectations, then figure out why and see if you can make changes to get it where you want it to be. Tim says, if it'll bring him up, oh, it took him away. It's snowing here in Nashville area too. Man, that as soon as I get off the air, I'm gonna go look at weather reports, because it seems like the storm is much bigger than I realized. I took this load off the load board out here to California because I thought I had one backed up to it going to Illinois, and I ended up not getting it, and because I'm looking at a truck in Illinois, and so now I'm looking at maybe taking a load back to Texas or something. But I didn't even look at the weather out that way because I knew I was going the opposite direction. But yeah, just be careful out there, Tim. And I hope you didn't think I was snapping at you earlier with your comment. I'm really glad you're here. Ryan says he's home in Chattanooga and they're under an extreme winter weather advisory. Yeah, the one thing about over there, though, is if you get bad weather, they know how to take care of the roads, and so even if it's bad, they can usually get it under control pretty quick. OTR Vic wants to know where they're located. I believe originally I think I said that I thought they were in Missouri, but I believe that they are actually in Utah. Seemed like he said that he was licensed in Utah, but I can pull it up real quick while I'm on the air with you guys and give you that information if my phone will cooperate. Let's see. I'm trying to do this quickly for you guys. They are located in Taylorsville, Utah is where they're headquartered at. So yeah, it's like I don't know why I thought Missouri. I researched a bunch of companies before I decided to go to Trucker CFO, and I'm not kidding, guys. It's been one of the best decisions I've made. My stress level has gone down like you wouldn't believe. I was getting so upset with the other company that their name's been mentioned in this video. I've tried not to mention them, and I tried everything I could to work things out with them, but it was just one headache after another, and I haven't experienced none of that with these guys. What you saw on air tonight is what I've experienced every time that I've called them. And so I really hope that this results in several of you guys contacting them tomorrow, checking out their podcast on their websites, things like that, because it's a stand-up group of people, and I mean that. Snowing here in Holland, Michigan. Yeah, it seems like up there, especially if you get close to the Great Lakes, that it's always some kind of rain or snow. I hadn't been up there in quite a while. I always seem to find myself out west, but I've made it a goal of mine to try to go out that way more. I love going to Buffalo, New York, and I don't mind Michigan or any of the Midwest, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, that area. But I hadn't been up there in a while. I like the Southeast a lot, and I'm going to spread my wings and try to get to different parts of the country a little more. This storm is from Texas all up to the Northeast states, and from Kentucky down to southern Tennessee and all in between. Wow. Yeah, I always think about people when we go through these kind of storms, because most of us, we're going to be okay. Our families are going to be okay. But there's some elderly that maybe are living in a fixed income and poor conditions. We're going to have some deaths because of this. My last night at the house before I took off, the sirens were going all night. There was accidents everywhere, and it was kind of hard to sleep. And so I hate that this storm's going to create a lot of tragedy. And if you guys see somebody in need, just try to help them out. It may be something little, give them a bottle of water or something. But if you can do something to help, try to help. That's how trucking used to be, and who knows, it may return to that one day. But if it does, it's going to be a while. This is why I'm only going to be running southeast and Texas area. Weather is always better for the most part. I'm staying south of I-40. Yeah, that's a strategy that a lot of guys do, and that is kind of a blessing and a curse. I'll tell you why. If you're on spot market rates, the rates typically tank in those areas in the winter because supply and demand. They know there's going to be a lot of trucks in the area that don't want to run north of I-40. I used to purposefully, when I was on the spot market, I would run up to the Northwest, Seattle and Portland and places like that, because I would get great rates because a lot of people wouldn't run up there. Now, I was using weather apps and stuff, and I would pick loads at times when I thought I could get in and out without being trapped up there. But the more diverse you will be with your load selection, the better results you're going to have in a lot of cases. I think I've told this story before. We had a guy at DART that had 30 states that he wouldn't run to, and because of his religion, there was several days a week he couldn't run. So it was almost impossible for them to dispatch him because he had, I think it was Saturday and one other day of the week that he couldn't work at all, couldn't move the truck at all. And then he had 30 states he wouldn't go to, so they couldn't really send him anywhere. And he was wanting to be an independent contractor. Now, maybe if he'd have got with the company as a local driver, or maybe if he'd have got with a company that did Texas only, that would have worked for him. But yeah, I understand people are afraid of the weather and use good judgment and park, but when you limit yourself, you limit yourself. So that's, if you start doing that and you notice your income's not where you want it to be, you might want to adjust that a little bit. But if it works fine for you, then good, keep doing it. Chris Petrie says, I'm heading to Georgetown, Kentucky. Hope the roads are good. Yeah, me too. Somebody just said that Kentucky's getting it too, so be careful out there. Northern Indiana and West Michigan is almost always lake effect. Same with Buffalo and Erie. Yeah, as a general rule, I hate New York and definitely the city. But the last time I went to Buffalo, New York, I had my wife with me, and we had a real good time up there. And next time I go back that she's with me, we're going to go to Niagara Falls and do some stuff like that. I like it up there, but you're right. It's usually cold, rainy, or snowy or something up there. I'll definitely be in touch with them. Seems like I'm having the same issues with ATBS. Yeah. Just hear their spiel and see what you think, especially if you can get it for the same price as what ATBS is, or for within $1 of ATBS prices. I guarantee it's worth that dollar for the lower stress level and for them getting your stuff right. And it may be nothing more than they're a smaller company and they've got more time to focus. But I really feel like they take it seriously and try to help me. And after this interview, I've got more questions for them. So I'll be calling them probably this week or next week and discussing some more stuff with them. But I hope you guys will send me some good questions for the last Tuesday of the month show, and I'll remind you guys about it. And I hope that you guys will do like OTR Vic and give them a call yourself. Tim says, that's what I do, Ryan, but this storm is on the contrary to our beliefs. Yeah, it is. There's an exception to every rule, or at least there should be. It's only in the wintertime. Summer, spring, you'll go anywhere except the Northeast. Yeah, but that's every truck driver. Think of supply and demand. The loads that pay good are the loads that nobody wants to do, or that go to where nobody wants to go. You can find 100 drivers that want to run I-40 South. I can think of companies that have I-40 South dedicated accounts. But going to the areas that other guys don't want to go to and doing things other guys don't want to do is where it's at now. On a mileage sliding mileage pay scale like what we're on here at Swift, then yeah, you can do it as long as the miles are there. But if you get somewhere and they're like saying, hey, we don't have any loads that are going where you want to go, I'm just saying consider going somewhere else. Or if you do it for a few weeks and your check's not where you want it to be, consider doing something else. But as long as things are good, keep doing what you're doing. Do you change your tractor tires to snow tires when you run in the winter? No, um, I don't. It's a big expense, and with all the weather apps and stuff that's out now, there's no surprises with the weather. Really, you can you can kind of make smart decisions about where you go and where you don't go. And so I run the same tires all year. It can be pretty expensive to swap them out, and even after you swap them out, first of all, where do you store the 8 that you get off? I guess I could go to Lubbock, swap them out, put them in my shop, then go back to Lubbock at the end of winter, swap them out again, put the others back in my shop. But it just makes more sense to run the ones you got. I currently have chains on the truck because Swift gave them to me, but I do have tire socks, and I've done a few videos about the tire socks. I would never recommend regularly using them, but I think I've used them twice or 3 times. They're okay to make you legal in all the states, and they're okay in emergency situations. But I would not use them regularly, or if I did heavy haul or anything like that. So that's my thoughts on tire chains. Let's see. I always stop when the storm blows through and then gives the workers time. Yeah, that's exactly it. You pull over and eat you a hamburger, and by the time you finish your hamburger, maybe watch a movie, they'll have the roads cleared up and you can get right back out there. Or go right behind the snow plows once they get out there and plow the roads. It's also a good thing in the big cities. If you know you're coming into a big city during rush hour, there's going to be a lot of traffic. Pull over, walk the dog, make some phone calls. By the time you get done, rush hour's over and you can zip right through those cities and you're not burning up all your logbook time. What would you rather have, brand new Kenworth W900 long hood or brand new Peterbilt long hood? I like the Peterbilts, but in this day and age, I'm focusing on fuel economy, but I like the Peterbilts mainly, and this is a stupid reason to like a truck because I realize they're kind of sister trucks. The top bunk on a Peterbilt folds in half, so you can use it like a shelf, and it doesn't stick out like this Freightliner does. It's kind of folded up, so it's great for storage. But I think they're both great looking trucks. I don't know that 5 or 6 miles a gallon right now really appeals to me. But yeah, in the right situation, I think everybody would love to have one of those trucks. The Harris guy that was on here, he take an MRP lease. Harris, I'm not sure. Oh, Ryan Harris. Ryan, did you get an MRP truck? I believe you did, but I might be wrong. Hello, Rooster Cruiser. Tim said he got him a T680. He said it's the best KW on the road. I liked my Kenworth that I had at Dart before I got my Peterbilt, but I just love that top bunk on the Peterbilt. And the Peterbilt seemed like it was built a little better, and that may just been because it was newer. I was in a 2019 Kenworth, and I went to a 2022 Peterbilt, so it may have been nothing more than one truck was just newer than the other. But that Peterbilt was the best truck I've ever had. It wasn't the fanciest I've ever had, but it was a great truck. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, there's a lot of logic to what Tim's saying too. He says he would take a Kenworth because they're cheaper and just as good as, if not better. Yeah, there's probably a lot of truth to that. They're sister trucks. I believe they're made in the same building. They share a lot of parts. And so, yeah, cost needs to figure into that. Fuel economy needs to figure into that. There's a lot of things that you have to consider when you're purchasing a truck. And sadly, a lot of times all people consider is the color and how fast it'll go. But there's a lot of other things you should be looking at when you consider purchasing a truck. Do they charge you separately for filing your taxes at the end of the year, or is it all one deal, if you know what I mean? It's all one deal. So mine's like $23 a week, and I gave them a credit card number, and they just hit me for $23 and some odd cents a week. And honestly, I never miss the money, and I email in my receipts and stuff like that. And then they got a form I fill out once a month for anything that I hadn't emailed in that I can put on there of additional expenses. Yeah, I went to my high school prom. I don't know what that has to do, but yeah, it was 30 something years ago, but yeah, I went. Do you get very nervous when you're in the city and your trailer tandems are slid all the way to the back? Those tight turns, though, with tandems all the way to the back really sucks. Well, I don't ever have mine all the way to the back because in several states that's illegal. And I don't know why I would want to purposefully make driving through a city more difficult. So I slide my wheels up as far as I can legally have them. And that's generally what I do. Same thing with a truck stop. I look for the easiest parking place I can find that's an actual parking place. So I don't park in the fuel island. I don't create parking, but I don't look for some of these guys look for the hardest spot in the lot and they're blindside back in and all of this. Not me. I look for a pull through or a straight back or something like that. Can I get into those other spots? Sure, but I'm not going to receive a trophy or extra pay for backing into one of those hard spots. So why would I want to risk hitting somebody's mirror? I just take the easiest spot I can find. And working at Swift and being Trucker Todd, if I were to hit somebody's mirror, can you imagine the hell that would rain down on me? So I'm looking for simple and easy when I do it. Ryan says, no, he got a 20. That's right. That's right. Ryan got a red 2021 Volvo that he sent me pictures of. I'm sorry, Ryan. It's been a crazy day. And it was a million miler truck that he got, special order, and it's super nice. Yeah, it'll be like owner operator spec. It's going to be a great truck, but they're not going to let him roll it over into an MRP. So what he's planning to do is drive that truck for the 1.2 years till the lease is up, and then he'll get a new truck. And it's my understanding when you do that they let you have some input in how it's optioned and colors and things like that. So and then he can certainly do the straight lease and purchase it out at the end if that's what he wants to do. But for the next 1.2 years, Ryan's going to be driving a really nice truck, and then he's going to get a brand new really nice truck. And he's pretty excited about that, and I'm excited for him. Yeah, Tim's agreeing with me. It's not normally legal to run tandems to the rear. I see guys do it all the time, especially if they're bebopping around from warehouse to warehouse. But it's the odds of something bad happening are pretty good on some of these tight turns, clipping a telephone pole or a stop sign. And I just take that 2 or 3 minutes, get out, slide my wheels. Here at Swift, I've yet to have a trailer that I couldn't pull that slider with one hand. And some of them have the air slide, but even the ones you got to pull the old handle, I've been able to do it with one hand, even the old ratty looking trailers. And so that's something that I've really liked. Well, at Dart, I had some that it was difficult to slide. I ain't even going to lie. Thank you, Joe, for the $10. Good evening, my friend. I hope you're doing well this evening. Rock on. I was going to talk about Joe Wentz tonight. You guys go over and check out his YouTube channel. He did a really good rendition of Never Say Goodbye by Bon Jovi. You guys know I grew up in the 80s. That's my junior high and high school years. and it was really good. He's very talented as a guitarist, and he does a lot of music on his show. It's generally not trucking related, but it's good music to listen to while you're going down the road. And if Bon Jovi's not your thing, that's okay. He plays other kind of music as well. But you guys go check out my friend Road Scholar and my friend Joe Wentz, and I appreciate the contribution and you being here tonight. I've actually went back and listened to your video a couple of times while I was driving, and I really enjoyed it. Baked Steaks Exotics says, I've seen truckers with tandems all the way to the rear, and it's a 53-foot trailer. See it all the time in the city. I live in McAllen, Texas. Yeah, the thing you got to think about is if they've got a load of any substantial weight, say 35,000 or so, they're probably overweight on their drives. And so if a DOT sees them, he's probably going to pull them over. A lot of states have bridge laws, and it doesn't have anything to do with the physical bridge. It has to do with the length between your kingpin and your tandems on your trailer. What they're calling the bridge is the area of your trailer in between. So it's just a bad situation. If you don't run over something, you're inviting DOT and even some sheriff's deputies that have DOT knowledge want to pull you over. Yeah, Slipdog says, watch your tail swing. I've seen this a lot in truck stops. Guys will pull out of a parking place and they're not thinking about their tail swing, and the rear of their trailer will swing around and catch somebody's hood or somebody's mirror. I know it's a tired old saying. People get tired of hearing it, but if you're ever concerned, get out and look. Probably not a bad idea to get out and look anyway, even if you're sure of what you're doing. It takes a few minutes, and people say, well, I don't want to do it because I won't look like I know what I'm doing, or I won't look like a professional. Well, you won't look like a professional if you take that guy's mirror either. Just get out and look. It's going to save you a lot of time and money and possibly your job in the long run. So do that. Great show. Just wondering, how does leasing affect Social Security? He covered that in the video. Basically, and I don't know that I could do it justice of explaining it, but when you set up your LLC, he talked about what part of your income taxes go to Social Security. I think he said it was 15 point something percent went to it. I would encourage you to go back and watch that video. Or if you stick with me, the last Tuesday of February, I'm going to have him on again, and we can certainly ask him that question again. We're going to have different viewers each week, and so some of the same questions are going to come up over and over, and we'll pitch it to him again and let him re-answer it. But the way I understood it, you guys correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, that's covered in there when they figure your taxes as well. So, did Swift assist you on getting you a rental car to pick up your truck, or is that on you? So, when I did it, Swift paid for my rental car. It's my understanding now that it depends on where you live and where your truck is that you're picking up. In some cases, they do. In some cases, they don't. I've heard a number of around $300 is what they're willing to spend. But I would encourage you to go through the process, do your application, talk to Michelle. I know some people fly to their truck. Some people drive their personal vehicles. I got a rental car that I went from Lubbock to El Paso and then El Paso to Lancaster, Texas. And I could have had a plane, but I took a rental car so that I could bring all my truck stuff and hit the ground running working. But when you get on the phone with Michelle, they'll work that out with you. And she's not going to be able to answer a lot of those questions until they get you approved and figure out what kind of truck you're going to be in and things like that, where it's located. So they will definitely help you with that. Tim says, I think Texas is one of the only states that allows tandems to the rear, but to be honest, a lot of truck drivers, especially local. Yep, exactly. That's true. And I don't know if it's still the case, but for a while, Texas had 57-foot trailers. I knew there were a few of them at DART, and you could only run them in a few states. And I haven't seen a 57-foot trailer in several years, but I know they were around for a while. Texas, as a general rule, is really laid back towards trucking, as far as there's not that many restricted roads. There's not that many low bridges, things like that. There are a few, but not as many as a lot of your other states like New York or Illinois might have. All right, let's see here. Did you always want to be a truck driver since you were a kid, or did you want to do something else? So that's an interesting story. We're at the minute and 40 mark, so I'll probably give you the shortened version. And basically, no, I never wanted to be a truck driver. On Labor Day of 1996, I ran a lawn care company, and I was in Shallowater, Texas. I had an employee with me, and I pulled out in front of a semi truck. One of my employees flipped off another car, and he said, "Look, Todd, they're turning around." And I looked back, distracted driving, and I pulled out in front of a tanker, and I got hit at 70 miles an hour. I T-boned. I was in an El Camino, and I broke 4 ribs, 4 spinal processes, punctured a lung. I was in pretty bad shape, and took me a while to recover. And I was laying in bed for probably a month or two, kind of bedridden. And I was reading the paper, and they had back then, this is in 96, keep in mind, Swift had an ad in the paper that said you can make up to $35,000 a year. And to me, that sounded like $1 million. I had been working fast food. I had done a lot of jobs like that I didn't make a lot of money. I had made some commercials for Burger King, and I'd made some pretty good money from that. And so I thought, well, I'll become a truck driver. So long story short, I went to truck driving school with an ace bandage around my ribs, holding my ribs together and stuff. I don't know how I passed the physical. I faked it till I made it. I separated my shoulder while I was in truck driving school, because the instructor had me pulling on the 5th wheel pin while the guy was rocking the truck, and the guy's foot slipped off the clutch, and when the truck went forward, it separated my shoulder. So I was pretty banged up when I started my trucking journey, and I went to Swift for 4.5 years. I had an excellent trainer, but at the end of the 6 weeks, and I mean, he was perfect. We were about ready to kill each other, and that's why I don't ever think I could team. I did do some training for a while, but that's not something I'm interested in doing again either. All right, Tim cleared it up. He said 15.5% covers workers' comp, SSI, and Medicaid. Ryan said they fly you out. You can rent a car and they will reimburse you. The company does not pay for rental cars up front anymore. That was straight from Michelle. I spoke with her today. Okay, so there you go. They've changed some of their policies. They're also going to be starting to charge a down payment at some point in the future. So if you guys want a truck and you don't want to put money down or pay the down payment out in payments, I would encourage you to go ahead and get your application in. I've said this in a couple of videos. I used to get information really quick from Swift, and lately it's been kind of slow coming. So a lot of times I rely on the information you guys give me, and then I'll call and confirm it or things like that. I hope that things will return at some point. And but yeah, they just I guess they get busy and they don't have time. But yeah, I guess that's what the policy is now. But I would encourage everybody that just, if that's something you're concerned about, discuss it with Michelle when you call in. And I think you guys will agree with me. She's one of the most honest people you'll ever meet. And whatever she tells you, you can take it to the bank. That's the way it's going to be. And that's part of the reason I work with her. So is there a trucker GPS that's pretty much 100% accurate? If there is, I hadn't found one. And I'll tell you why. You get in these big cities, Kansas City, Dallas, there's so many flyovers that they'll get confused. And another reason is roads are constantly changing for construction and things like that. So I haven't found one that's 100% accurate. I've got a Garmin in here and I'm pretty happy with it, but even sometimes it hiccups and makes a mistake. Tim agrees with me. No GPS is 100% accurate. Ryan says, "Wow, Todd, the man upstairs had a plan for you." Well, I hope so. And you just never know. I think he's got a plan for all of us. And so that's, I'm not gonna beat my religious beliefs over your head or anything like that. But yeah, it's I've had a lot of good fortune in my life. The first 20 years I drove a truck, I wasn't super successful at it, and then something clicked, and things just started working, and I started growing and learning, and so now I do really good, and I think I could do good at any company, but it hasn't always been this way, and that's why now that I've got the hang of it, I'm trying so hard to help others that are going through what I went through in the past. If companies still had cab overs, would you choose to drive one or stick with fleet trucks that they have now? So I actually love cab overs, and Freightliner had one called a Argosy, I think's how you pronounce it, that it was actually a flat floor cab over. And I would love to have one of those. If I could find one right now in decent condition, I'd probably buy it. I've always liked those trucks. They're easy to back. They're at the end before the cab overs went away. They were fairly comfortable to ride in. And a lot of people think that they went away for fuel economy because they look like a brick going down the road. But they actually went away in the United States due to drivers falling out of them. But the last ones they made on the side of the cab, the steps came out, and you actually had steps to step up on in it. But the earlier ones you had to climb. It was like rock climbing. So if you could get one of the last cab overs that they really had in the United States before they went away, I would like to have one. If you guys see a good one out there on the road, shoot me an email. I'd definitely be interested in it. Michelle also wants to know when you're transferring to Greer. She told me to tell you. Yeah, the only problem with that, and I'd say this to any of you guys, they're on a different time zone. I live in Texas, so I think it works best if you deal with a terminal that's in your own time zone, because you're able to work with them more. But I definitely have a lot of friends in Greer at that terminal. I think the world of Michelle. There's a OOC there named Chris Shell that I've gone out to dinner with him. He's a pretty good guy. And and the body shop is bar none one of the best body shops in the country. Swift's Body Shop in Greer, I'd put them up against anybody. I've met the body shop manager. He's a great guy. And if I ever need any body work and I'm in that part of the country, without a doubt, that's where I'd go. And I tried my best to get him on air. I would love to talk to him some more because he's a great guy. But yeah, I like the Greer terminal and the people there. I went out there for 4 or 5 days. I may have been there a week and kind of met people and saw a lot of viewers and stuff. And it was a lot of fun. And I'm going to try to do it again real soon, maybe for driver appreciation or something. I'll go get a hotel and, stay there for a week and meet everybody and do live shows every day from out there and things like that. Great show. Thanks for your time, buddy. Get some rest. Have a great night. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, we're going to be wrapping it up soon. We might as well go to the 2-hour mark. We got about 12 minutes left. Anybody got any more questions, throw them up there. Viewership's starting to drop off now. And I got to do some more driving tonight anyway. I don't have a CDL, but I want to buy a cab over Peterbilt that's for sale. Can I buy the truck even though I don't have a CDL? I would tell you it probably is going to depend what state the truck is in and what state you live in. I'm currently trying to buy a Volvo that's in Illinois and transport it back to Texas. My son's a diesel mechanic, and I'm going to have him go through it and all. and I'm going to keep driving the Swift truck while he's doing that. And it's a booger getting registration and paying the IFTA and all the stuff you've got to do just to transport a truck, even though you're not hauling freight, even though you're just bobtailing. There's a lot of headaches that go through it. Texas wanted me to have a DOT number to do it, and I think I've found a way around that. Now, if you've already got a truck and you quit a company and you're going to another company, they have something called a hunter's permit. But if you're buying a truck out of state from an individual, it's a little more of a challenge. And I know some of you are going to say, Todd, why don't you sneak it to Texas? And the problem is, if I get caught, it's a lot of fines. And some of you are going to say, why don't you have it towed to Texas? And actually, that would be more expensive than just paying the permits and the diesel and everything. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes regarding that. And if I end up getting that truck, we'll make videos about it, and I'll include you guys in that process. Tim says you can buy any vehicle without a license, but you can't drive it legally. Yeah, I guess you could buy it, but I don't know how you would move it or anything like that without having the proper registration and things like that. Ask Bake Steaks how long he's been driving. Bake Steaks, if you're still here, they want to know how long you've been driving. Yeah, I've also got Garmin, and I also use Smart Route sometimes if Garmin doesn't know the address. And on very rare occasions, yeah, I got Smart Route back in the day. I got a lifetime subscription, so I do go use it some. On very rare occasions, I also use the Zonar in here, but it's terrible. Smart Trucker Route and Garmin are both years and years ahead of this Zonar. Chris says he was napping, but he's here now. You guys, Chris, another one with a YouTube channel that he's trying to start. Go check him out as well. I believe it's called Chris B Trucking, and it's a pretty good show too. Joe says the Greer terminal is 30 minutes from his house. When I'm in Greer again, holler at me and we'll try to hang out. I'll take you out to dinner or something. It'd be good to see you and put a face with the name. I know I've talked to you on the phone, but I'll take you out for a steak dinner or something next time I'm in Greer. I didn't realize you lived that close to that terminal. And you may have to remind me, I'm 50 and getting old. My brain ain't as sharp as it once was. But yeah, anytime you hear me say, any of you guys, you hear me say I'm at a location that's near where you're at, holler at me. And if I've got the time, I'll meet up with you guys. Dump trucks require Class B, but sometimes I see dump trucks pulling a trailer with a backhoe. Do you need a Class A if you add the trailer to the back of the dump truck? So the answer to that is it depends on the total gross weight. And depending on what the total gross weight is, depends what kind of CDL you have to have. And so it's a little hard to answer that without knowing what the weight of those things are that's on that trailer. But generally speaking, I would say when they're pulling a trailer like that, they probably have to have a Class A. Robin, he says he's asking questions because he's obviously not a truck driver. Yeah, that's okay. That's, when I started this channel, we mostly had independent contractors. Now we've got company drivers. Now we've got people that are thinking about becoming truck drivers, and everybody's welcome here. We try to get to your questions as fast as we can. But yeah, I'm glad you're here, and I don't mind answering any questions or trying to get you the answer to any questions. Christopher says you don't have to have a CDL to own a truck, only to drive one. Yeah, I guess that's true for anything. You can buy anything. It's just, can you operate it? You can buy a car without a driver's license. It's just you're not supposed to operate one without it. Chris says he's iced in there in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Yeah, I went into a big spiel about everybody being careful out there. So just stay safe, my friend. Tim says he uses Apple Maps and very rarely is it lied to him. Yeah, the thing I tell you about Apple Maps or Google Maps is that they don't account for truck restrictions, and so be careful. They can send you down a truck route, something that's not a truck route or something like that, or put you under a low bridge. But in a lot of cases, sometimes I have to use Google Maps if it doesn't know where the address is in my Garmin. So Christopher says he's been debating on going to Swift. Been out here 21 years. Just had a decision to make. He says if they went percentage pay and full load board, he'd jump in. Right now, you don't want percentage until rates come up. I guarantee you, you'll make probably 30% or 30 cents a mile less than me until rates went up. I came from where I had 87 load boards, and I negotiated my own rates and did all of that. And I came to Swift because of what the spot market was doing, and I wanted some safety. Now, could something happen in the world tonight and change all that? Absolutely. And tomorrow, if spot market rates doubled or something, it's very possible tomorrow I might be coming on here saying everybody needs to go to percentage pay. The load board's in beta testing right now, and I'm currently testing it. The load I'm on now is one I pulled off the load board, and it should be available to everyone later this year. You think I should be the host of the Swift Roundtable? Well, I was a guest on it for several weeks, and that has come to an end. But Coach has that, and he does a good job with it, and y'all can check him out if that's something y'all are interested in. I think for now I'm going to keep doing my Tuesday and Thursday shows, and I appreciate all of y'all coming in here with me. We had several others that went up live against me tonight. That seems to be a trend. There's a lot of people trying to take me down, but it won't matter. I'll still get the views. After I rebroadcast this, when this show ends, people will watch it. And by tomorrow, those same people that went up against me, I'll outperform them 2-to-1 in views. And so I'm not worried about them. They can do what they do, and I wish them the best. But we're just going to keep doing what we do here and helping drivers, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. If the trailer behind the dump truck does not have air brakes, it can be pulled with having a Class B. Okay, there's the clarification. I believe the trailers he's talking about, though, do have air brakes, if I'm not mistaken. That's why some of those questions are hard to answer, because you really need to see the equipment. I have a feeling I will need your help on starting up when I pick up my truck next week. Yeah, please email me, OTR Vic. I'll help you out. They don't do an orientation here, so it can be a little bit overwhelming if you don't have somebody you can call and get some help. I helped a guy today get his Zonar set up and showed him how to use it and all of that. And so it's no problem for me. I've done it so many times that I can tell you while I'm driving down the road without even getting in my system. Yeah, you can use Google Earth to get coordinates and enter them into Garmin. I don't do that so much, but sometimes I will put it in Google Earth to see what parking looks like in the area, to kind of get an idea of what the building looks like and things like that. But yeah, you can get the coordinates that way too, and they're usually pretty accurate. Bobby Martin says, I'm late. Man, honestly, I'm not tooting my own horn, but it was a pretty good show. If you get a chance to go back and watch it from the beginning, it'll be available probably 10 or 15 minutes after we wrap this up here in a few minutes. Go check it out. It'll be a good show. I think you'll enjoy it. There was a lot of good tax information there. Why do big trucking companies not have 40-foot trailers, only 53-foot? I guess maybe because of the extra space. Yeah, the truth is, even on the load boards, when it says what the shippers are asking for, even if they don't use the space, a lot of these shippers now are requesting 53-foot trailers. So I've had some loads that were 6 or 8 pallets, but the shipper wanted 53-foot trailers, and they'll put requirements in there. Some of them want roll door, which is like a garage door that rolls up. Some of them want swing doors. They'll have requirements there, but it's just some of them will say they don't want a trailer more than 10 years old. And typically, companies are generally ordering 53-foot trailers because that's what their customers want. We can tell genuine versus not, and Todd is genuine. Well, thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. Yeah, Christopher's also chiming in. Yeah, if the trailer's got air brakes, it requires Class A. That is true. And I don't know about now. When I took the air brake test to get my CDL back in '96, it was a pretty tough test. I think I struggled with that test more than I did hazmat or anything else. Did you see what happened to one of the Swift drivers? He jackknifed on snow conditions. No, I didn't see that. But I'd say this, that's really dumb because Swift don't give you any grief if you say you want to park in bad weather. And so if it's bad, pull over. And I've been saying it in all these videos, and I'm not egotistical enough to think that every Swift driver watches my channel, but I hope some of them will see it and listen. Swift will totally understand if you pull over for bad weather. Just call your contact person, OOC, fleet manager, whatever they call them, and tell them I'm pulling over for bad weather. And they'll say, all right, give us an update when you know more. They're not going to fire you. They're not going to threaten you or pressure you. They don't want you having an accident. So I hope that, man, it makes me sad when I see that because it definitely could have been avoided. So Tim Russian said he agrees with Tim back. He thinks I'm genuine. I appreciate that. I really do. That's, I've been accused of everything and been called everything but a human on here. And honestly, the biggest compliment I get is when I meet you guys in person and y'all tell me that one of my videos helped you or me talking to you on the phone helped you. That's where it's at. The money's nice, and I've never lied to you guys. I do pretty good out here, but I appreciate y'all trusting me, and I appreciate the information y'all give me, and it's a reciprocal arrangement here where hopefully we both benefit. Yeah, I would agree. 48 trailers these days, or 48-foot trailers these days, are mainly used in applications where it's local or warehouse to warehouse close by. Slipknot said he was grandfathered in on his CDL, started with a chauffeur license. So he's got a lot more experience than I do by far. I've been at it 25 years. I started in '96. If he has a chauffeur's license, he's been in it since at least the '80s. If you want to be an owner operator, it's best to buy a reefer because you can haul both dry van loads and frozen food loads instead of dry van loads. Yeah, for the most part, that's true. However, again, on the load boards, I saw some loads, especially heavier loads, where they said that no reefers allowed. They specifically wanted a dry van because you could haul more weight. Now, another thing about a reefer too is when you're doing refrigerated loads, they're generally heavy, and there's a risk that you're going to wait at a produce place or at a meat plant or something like that. So every facet of the trucking market has pros and cons, and it's just what you're willing to live with for the compensation you receive. So no company can make you drive in adverse weather conditions. It's against the law to force you to drive in adverse weather conditions. Yeah, some of these companies have got pretty sneaky though. And what they'll do is instead of sending you a message over your ELD, they'll call you and they'll say, hey, Tim, we really need that load to get there. Or they'll say, well, Tim, we noticed that you didn't follow one of our policies, or, they'll start trying to squeeze you out. But I'd say if it's a company that'll squeeze you out for making a safety decision, then it's probably a place you don't want to work anyway. And so that's my thoughts on that. I realize we're all in different situations, and some of us don't have a choice but to work where we work, but it's just not worth your life. Deal with the repercussions and take it safe and be careful out there. But speaking of that, I need to get off here and get back to work. I want to thank everybody for watching tonight. Join me on Thursday night where we'll do, in case you missed it, we'll talk about all the things we've talked about lately. If you guys want to talk more about the weather, your experience, if you want to talk about the tax stuff we covered tonight. I know some of you missed most of the video and you're going back to watch that over again. You may have questions. Let's cover them on Thursday night. You guys join me. We're going to end with Tim's comment. He says, you and only you are responsible for your CDL. Absolutely. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.